Welcome back, YouTube, to another video. How's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling? Hope you're having a very fantastic day, morning, night, evening, whatever it is, man. Guys, if you're brand new to the channel, this channel is all about me running a couple of pizza businesses and being in recovery. Okay, I've got 13 years of active sobriety away from alcohol. In the very beginning, I, got away from not smoking weed. So I've got like maybe 11 years of total sobriety, 13 away from alcohol. And this video today is just strictly about me and kind of how I got into sobriety, man. This is my cat, Maximus, by the way. He's a really good cat. He's getting old. He's going to be 15. And man, what a good cat. I've had him since he was a kitten, and what a great kitty. But today is all about talking about sobriety and just kind of explaining how I got to the point that I'm at today. Wow, Ramos just hit another home run for my fantasy baseball team, so that's A-okay in my book. And, just to kind of take you back to when I first got sober, towards the end of my drinking career, I mean, I would drink every single day. For me, it got so bad towards the end of my drinking that I would drink early in the morning. I mean, I would wake up and I'd still be drunk from the night before. And, if I had 3, 4, 5, 6, beers left, I would drink those before I went into work. And there were some days that, I had to be in there at 11. Some days I had to be in there at, 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock. It didn't matter for me towards the end. It was like I was drinking before I went into work. And I was like the kind of guy that I would try and drink as fast as possible. I had like a beer bong phase where like I only drank if like my beer was like poured into a beer bong. I remember being over at my buddy's house, and yeah, I'm just gonna walk around with you guys, man, that way I'm not just standing here. I remember being over at my buddy's house, and I was in his basement, and he was sleeping, my other buddy was sleeping, and I thought that it was going to be a good idea for me to stay up. And in his basement, he has like the rafters up on top. Like, I just put my beer bong like funnel up in the rafters, and I would pour my beer in there, and I'd let all that foam settle down. That was the hardest part for me, was to like wait for all this foam to go. And I would just sit there and I just do a bunch of beer bongs until I passed out. I had like a phase like that, where I was kind of doing it all by myself at home too. I had a phase where you could take a bendy straw and you could put it into a bottle of beer, and you can kick that bendy straw like the side, like out the side of your mouth, and the rest of it's down inside of there. So that way, when you tip the rest of the beer back, that straw allows all the air to get out of the bottle, and it just rushes down your throat. I had like, I don't know, months of just carrying around a bendy straw. Like I'd be at a bar, and it was like a bar trick. I could, kill a beer in 2 or 3 seconds. I mean, I could just destroy it. And, it was just like, that's what I was, that's who I was, and that's what I wanted to do. And what I would do too with like cans of beer is like at the top of, here, I got a soda right here. So like up at the top, like, right here, I would come by with a knife, and I would pop a hole at the top of that can. And like, it didn't do like that much, but it actually like did more than you think. That like when you put your mouth over the can, the opening of the can, like it would just like allow air to rush through that can. Anything I could do, that's my point, to just get the liquor down in my throat as fast as possible. Like that's what like my goal was, man. So that was definitely towards the end of my drinking career. And it was hard, man. I didn't know why I was drinking. I would black out every single night. I was a blackout drinker. That was kind of like my goal. I didn't want to feel, I didn't want to think. I felt less than and not good enough. And that was just, I wanted to escape and just run away from life, man. So I would black out every single night, and there'd be times, who knows? I mean, it was kind of a flip of a coin if I was going to wake up in my own piss. I mean, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I had a recliner I pissed in. I pissed on both sides of my couch. I pissed on my living room floor. I pissed on, in my bed numerous times. I remember one time I came home and I was just out at a bar, and I came home and I was like hammered. And I woke up the next morning. I vaguely remember getting home, but I fell asleep in my car, pissed myself. The battery to the car was dead. I had to, jump start the car the next day because the dome light was left on all night. And, my dog was in the house, all by himself all night. He pissed himself, shit all over the place. And, that was just like my life. And I'll never forget waking up from my last drunk. And, I just, again, pissed myself. Woke up on my living room floor and I didn't move a muscle. I tell this story all the time. I didn't move a muscle, and I looked up at my dog that was laying on the couch, and he was in between his paws and he was just like staring at me. And like, I believe that God, just like my higher power, just like spoke through Roscoe, my dog at that time. And, something just told me like, I think it's time for a change, man. And, I was on this emotional roller coaster, where like I'd be super high and I'd be really giddy and life was great. And then like the next day I'd be like super down and like life sucks. And, why don't I just fucking end it? And like, I was never like too suicidal, but I think if I would have kept going, it would have just got worse and worse and worse. But, from that point, it was kind of like, I heard about AA. There was a couple times that I got drunk, and, even like a time I remember waking up one day and it was really hard. And I was like, you know what, dude? Like, I'm going to call the AA hotline, and like I called the AA hotline and they're like, well, I think that you should probably go to a meeting. And I'm like, I ain't going to a motherfucking meeting. And when I woke up from that last drunk that I had, I was like ready to just like try anything else than drinking. So I went ahead and I went to a beginner's meeting. And, this is kind of where they go into, the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives become unmanageable. And, it was kind of like, I was like, they call it riding on like a pink cloud. And I was really riding on that pink cloud. But in the very beginning, I stayed away from meetings. I was 26 years old. I was going into meetings and I'm surrounded by all these old people. That's the way that I viewed stuff, and I look for every single difference instead of every single similarity. And, I tried to separate myself instead of trying to get together with the we. And, I stopped going to meetings, man. And I lived a period of a dry drunk for a couple of years, and a dry drunk, if you don't know what that is just, you're not drinking, you're not doing drugs. All you're doing is just, you're the same person emotionally as you were before when you were drinking. It's just, you don't have the drinking around. And I was still angry. I was still sad. I was still bitter. I had all that resentment towards myself and other people. And, I just wanted to punch the world in the face. That's kind of how I felt all the time. And, I was seeking a therapist for a number of years before that. And it was pretty funny, man, because like I went to go see him and I tried to supplement seeing my therapist rather than like going to meetings and like working the 12 steps and like trying to get a sponsor and everything. And he asked me why I was there, and I kind of told him like, hey, I'm an alcoholic. I don't want to drink. And he's like, oh, hey, just so you know, like I just quit drinking myself, and like I've got 6 months. And then like I had 9 months at the time. And that was pretty wild. That was pretty crazy. But what happened is, I got into a bad relationship, maybe like a little over a year and a half after, getting sober and everything. And like I said, I started smoking weed again, and it's still, I still did it when every situation told me not to, so on and so forth. But after I got out of that failed relationship, I'll say that like my emotional bottom after getting out of that relationship was harder than my waking up from my last drunk bottom, because I had just like a couple more years of suppression. I wasn't working through things and it was tough. And, it was hard, man, because like I got into a relationship with a girl that was in the same strip center as my pizza place. So it was crazy, man. I mean, it was like I would sit there and here's a strip center, right? And like my business is over here, her business is over here. Every single day, I would like walk in, and I would walk into my business and I would seriously pretend like this whole side of the world did not even exist. It was really unhealthy. And low on, so on and so forth, like things kept moving along. And like a year later, I tried to rekindle it. My therapist was super against it, but sometimes like I got to just learn the hard way, dude. And I realized that she was the same person, and it was actually a really good thing that I got to see that. But after that, there was a guy that moved in that was a bodybuilder, owned like a training, place, bunch of weights in there. They started dating, and it was like super weird, dude. So it was like my place, her place, his place, and like I'd see him like walking. It was like the strangest part. It was the strangest time of my life. It was like the most craziest thing ever. You could have made a sitcom out of it. Seriously, it was like a drama movie. So like moving forward, like the landlord wanted to take his spot, so he moved him over here. So then it got a little bit better, but then he would bang his music like all the time. And it got really bad. Him and I, that was the first time ever in my life, because I had talked to the landlord, and the landlord was like, I'm just going to get you guys together and you guys can just talk. And I'm like, great. That was the first time in my life that I can remember going into a situation where I'm thinking to myself, like, this is going to be really great. We're going to get together. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to come up with some sort of resolution. Is there something that I'm doing? These are the things that I would like, from your side. He would park right in front of our business, so on and so forth. And we got together, and it was not good at all. He was like the biggest asshole ever. It sucked, and he started bringing her into all this stuff. And I was like, what is going on here, bro? It was super strange. And, I left that conversation, and shortly thereafter, I knew, I was like, something's got to change. And then that's, in a previous video, that's when I was driving home, whether it be, I can't remember if it was a month or, that week, the same day, whatever. I remember driving home, and I'm like, dude, I got to get out of this fucking strip center, dude. I got to move. And then that's when I saw the building that I bought that I moved Pizzeria Scotti into. But, it's kind of, that girl. And like, I'm not trying to say anything bad about anybody. Like, I'm so grateful that I was in that relationship with her, because it got me deeper into the program. After getting out of that relationship and realizing that, it wasn't just alcohol, I thought all I had to do was quit drinking and my life was going to be fantastic. And don't get me wrong, like, it did get really good after I quit drinking, but there was still more to it. That's what the program is all about. That's what working the 12 steps is all about, learning more about ourselves. And like, I'm grateful for her, man, because she catapulted me deeper into the program, right? And I'm grateful that situation happened between that bodybuilder and I, because it allowed me to move on to something else and to build something with, for myself over at the building. So like, I got nothing but, good things to say about him. I mean, at the time I didn't, it was really tough on me, but, I think that she was trying to use me to have a kid. Truly and honestly, I think that she was just really trying. And I think, it got to a point where, it just didn't happen. Believe me, I mean, we were trying, I was thinking with the wrong head, if I'm being 100%. I just wasn't thinking straight. I really wasn't. I wasn't thinking clearly. And I don't think it happened as fast as she wanted it to. And, it just kind of ended after that. But she wound up, getting pregnant with his kid. And then I remember he got kicked out of that strip center. Shortly after that, she moved out of that strip center. And then I was going to leave too. So like the landlord lost like boom, 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 crazy. And I remember I was pulling up to Scotty's that I just bought and built, the building. And he called me, this guy called me. And, he didn't apologize, but he apologized, and kind of took accountability for some of the stuff. And then, he went into, you know, a lot of the things that were happening between, you know, her and him. And then I'm like, holy shit, bro. You know, that's all the stuff that was happening between her and I. I didn't go, you know, too deep into it with him, you know, but after that phone call, it was like I was looking up at the sky and I was like, God, I don't know why you keep looking after me, man. I'm even like getting goosebumps right now, even like, I don't know why you keep looking after me. I'm not saying that I'm not worthy of it or I don't deserve this shit, but like, thank you, man. You know, I mean, this could be me. You know, I mean, I could be in that relationship and, you know, we could be, you know, having a kid and then, you know, not together anymore, just like them, you know, and like that's why he was calling me. He was trying to gain some intel because they weren't together anymore, and it was like crazy, dude. So it's just, you know, it's kind of been like a little bit of a roller coaster there, but like a lot of that stuff is kind of, you know, me putting myself into tough situations, man, and you know, it's like after I got out of, damn, you know, maybe I should be bringing up some of this stuff in my therapy session too, man. Because like I got to a point there where for like a few years just recently, I felt like I was so stuck, you know. I felt like, you know, I was afraid to make a decision because I didn't want to make the wrong decision. I didn't want to make the tough decision, right? So maybe I got to bring that up in the therapy and just make sure that like, you know, things are all kosher. Things are kosher, but you know, just to see, you know, if there's anything else kind of still lingering there, you know, because like I brought something up to my therapist maybe like 2 months ago, and there was some trust, you know, stuff that she was kind of bringing up. She's like, you know, Travis, I really want you to, you know, trust yourself, you know, trust your decision making, and I was like, I fucking do, I do, you know, and really like I fucking I don't, you know, so. Yeah, so that's interesting, but I don't want to sit here and share my whole story. I kind of want to, you know, add layers and layers and layers onto it. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like my first initial getting into it. But like, I share that at meetings all the time, man, that like, I'm grateful today that like I was able to wake up and I wasn't drenched in my own piss, you know, like it's been 13 years that I've woken up and I haven't been, you know, in my own piss. You know, I'm super grateful for that, man. I can't tell you how many times I woke up in my own urine just from drinking, you know, crazy. I would drink so much beer. I would just pound beer constantly. I would always have a beer in my hand. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm going to leave this video, guys. You know, I just wanted to share a little bit of kind of where, you know, my beginnings came from. I'm just going to, you know, add more on top of this as time goes on. So make sure to stay tuned. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm grateful for you guys, man. I'm grateful for these cats too. You know, look at them, dude. You know, they're waiting for their dad. I'm gonna go take a seat with these guys and just enjoy the rest of the night. I'm going golfing tomorrow. I just got a brand new golf club. My 3-wood finally got delivered today. So I'm super grateful for that. I went golfing today at a place called Curry. Shot an 84, beat my buddy. That's what I'm talking about, man. I'm living a good ass life. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you on the next time. Peace.